When you first launch Premiere Pro, you should see a start screen similar to this one, which is prompting you to start a new project or open a previous project. Let's click on New Project and give it a name and click OK. I'll start with this area down in the lower left-hand corner, which is the Project Panel area. Now, your view might differ than this if you're not in the editing workspace. So right now, just make sure that you've got editing highlighted in blue and you see the project panel down in the lower left. Let's start off by taking a quick tour of the Premiere Pro interface. As you see in the project area, this is where all of my media is stored. I've got some audio files here, I've got some video files, I've got some project folders here where I can organize things, also known as bins, as well as some timelines. And as you can imagine, there are tools at the bottom for searching, deleting, and creating new bins. And just as you imagine, it's easy enough just to take any asset and drag and drop it into a newly created folder. Again, keeping organized as these projects start to grow. The next area is the timeline area that you see here, which has a working relationship with the program monitor up here. So as you scrub down here at the bottom, you'll notice that whatever you scrub, wherever this time marker is, you'll get the resulting frame up here, which is also known as your program, or what you're going to be exporting when you complete the final video. So again, there's a direct relationship between this panel down here and what you see up here. And finally, the source panel area, which is the easiest place to trim your clips before you add them to the timeline. By double-clicking on any of the media in the project panel, that will preload it into the source monitor so you can now play or scrub the media. Once you find an area where you'd like to set an endpoint, you can go ahead and just mark an end either by hitting the I key or just clicking this icon here and dragging your video to where you'd like to have an out point, either hitting the mark out icon or pressing O. It's that easy. One of the most important panels to get a really good understanding of is the media browser panel. So simply by clicking on this tab, I can bring that forward. Here's where you'll find access to all of your local drives and your network drives. And navigating this particular panel is actually fairly easy. Now on US keyboards, there's a key above the tab key called the tilde key, which will toggle any panel full screen. So simply by hitting this key and having my mouse in this general area will allow me to take this panel full screen. Now if I hit the tilde key again being a toggle switch, you'll see it goes back to its original position. And by placing my cursor in the timeline area and I hit the tilde key, you'll see it takes that particular panel full screen. This is a feature you will use all the time, and it really comes handy in the media browser. For the keyboards that don't have the tilde key, there's a simple fix for you as well, and that's to look under Keyboard Shortcuts and just type in the word under cursor, and you'll get a selection that says maximize or restore frame under cursor. And here you'll see that there's a shortcut key there. You can click in this area and assign any key you want to your keyboard that will allow you to toggle back and forth. So as I refer to hitting the tilde key, you'll be hitting your own selected keyboard shortcut, again if your keyboard does not have a tilde key. Now for this exercise, let's import that media that you've downloaded. I'm going to put this in list view to make it easier to navigate. So from here I'm going to double click on the hoverboard footage folder. I'm going to go ahead and maximize this panel to full screen and put it in thumbnail view. And moving your mouse side to side will allow you to hover scrub over any of the clips. And now I just want to select all the clips, so I can either click the first clip, hold the shift key down and hit the last clip, or just do a standard Command A on Mac or Control A on Windows. And I'm going to hit my tilde key. And with all the clips selected, all I have to do now is just simply drag any of these selected clips into a new timeline to create that sequence. And as you'll see, it went ahead and took the name of the first clip, Hoverboard 001, named that the sequence, and all of the clips have now been placed on the sequence. Another key thing to point out is when you drag and drop your clips from the media browser into the sequence area, you'll notice when you go back over to the project panel, you'll see not only did it create the new sequence for you, it also imported all of the clips into the project, saving you a key step. From here, you might want to go ahead and click on the folder button, or again, what's known as a bin, and give that a name, and start organizing some of your footage. So I'm just going to go ahead and select these and then drag and drop them into that folder just to keep myself organized. And at this point, you should have a key understanding of the 4 general areas of Premiere Pro CC, from the project area to the timeline sequence area to the program and source monitor areas. And now you should be ready to fine-tune your edit. In this tutorial, we'll cover general trimming techniques, working in the timeline, and applying transitions. Let's get started. As you'll see, I've already got folders, or again what we call bins, that have our audio, graphics, sequences, and video footage already organized, so we're ready to edit. I'll start with going into the video footage folder and taking a look at all the clips that I already have in here. I'm going to double click on the 001 clip to load it into the source monitor. From here, you can just go ahead and use your general controls like play and stop, but sometimes it's just quicker just to grab the playhead and scrub back and forth to get a general idea what's in the clip. And I'm going to go ahead and just set an in point right here, and I'm going to hit mark in, or you can press the I key. And I'm going to go ahead and move them up here a little bit till I find an interesting point. Now you can also step it forward by a frame or step it backwards, or sometimes it's just easier to hit the arrow key to the right or the arrow key to the left and get the point to where you think it's perfect and press mark out or the O key. The easiest way to set up your sequence is to drag the media from the source window into this blank sequence area. When you do this and you drag and drop, you'll notice that Premiere Pro already set up the timeline with the correct frame size and the correct frame rate to match the clip from the source window. This also works if you drag and drop from the project bin into a blank sequence area. You'll notice that when we drag the clip to the timeline panel area to create the sequence, that it actually named the sequence for me. You can quickly change this just by clicking on it, hitting the delete key, then name it hoverboarding, and then click out of it, and you'll notice that it renamed the sequence for me. Here's a few tips to help you in the timeline panel area when you're working with the media and you need to zoom in and out. You can use the slider at the bottom of the screen to zoom in or out just by moving it right or left. I actually find it easier to use the plus key or the minus key to zoom in and out. Another key I use quite a bit is the backslash key, which will allow me to take it to an 80% view, which in many cases is exactly the right zoom level for me to continue to work. Let's continue by grabbing the second clip and bringing it over to the timeline area. And I'm just going to simply just drag this and let it go. Now you'll notice that this clip snapped right up against the other clip, and that's because I have snap turned on. You know it's on because it's blue. If you click on it, you'll notice it turns gray, which means it's not on. And sometimes you don't want your clips to snap in place because you need a little bit more precise adjustment. If you want to trim a clip directly in the sequence, you can do that as well. Just bring your mouse in this general area, and then you can just slide your playhead back and forth and find an area where you think it might be an interesting start. I'll go ahead and just trim it here by just grabbing the edge of the clip, and you'll notice your time marker turns to a red arrow pointing to the right in this case, and trim this in. Maybe that's a good out point, and you'll notice you now have a trimmed clip. Now there's a number of ways that you can move this clip into place. Of course, you can just click on it, drag it, and again it will snap into place because your snap is turned on. Or I find it easier if you just click in this area, you'll see it turns white, and then just hit the delete key, and that's called a ripple. Now let's bring the rest of the clips in, starting with the hoverboard 003 clip and then going all the way down to the bottom to the number 19 clip, and I'm going to just press the shift key to select all of those and then drag and drop those directly in place, and again you'll see it snaps right when it meets the edge. If you double click in this general area right here, you'll notice that the video track expands itself to show you the poster frames or the thumbnails of each clip directly in the sequence. I'm going to just hit the plus key to zoom in so I can get a better idea what these clips look like. And again, even with the clips in the timeline, as you start to move your playhead around to find that edit point and adjust this just by dragging the edge, again in this case to the right, and clicking in the gap area and pressing the delete key, you will close the gap with what's known as a ripple delete. The two keys that I use all the time are the Q and W keys. Let me show you why. As I try and find a good out point for this clip, all I have to do now is hit the W key to shift all of these clips back to the playhead. On this clip, what I want to do is change the end point, so I'm going to bring this up until I find the point that I want by hitting the Q key. I'm going to go ahead and finish up my adjustments using Q and W and work my way down the timeline. Let's go to our audio folder and bring some audio in just by simply dragging it to the audio track. I'm going to double click in this area to expose the waveforms so I get a better idea what the waveforms look like, which are really going to help me edit. You will find that even starting with audio is a really great way to start your editing. Let's play this back and see what it looks like and sounds like so far. I'm going to press play in the program monitor, or you can press the space bar to start and stop. Now this is a really great start, but I did notice a number of areas that I'd like to adjust. So let me show you what I thought I needed to adjust. And let's take a closer look on how to do that. You'll notice that when I move my playhead, you'll hear it scrubbing the sound. I'm going to go ahead and mute that so I don't have to listen to the scrubbing sound right now. I did notice there were a few clips here that were not in the right order for the way that they were shot, or maybe the way that tells the story the best way. So I'm going to go ahead and scrub those. Now you'll see here where he's coming out of the water, and then I've got a different shot of a different hoverboarder, and then the original guy lands in the water. So what I might want to do at this point is to match this clip when he goes underwater. What's the quickest way to do that? I'm going to start by hitting the padlock, locking my music track here, keeping it from changing as I edit. The diagonal lines tell you that the track has been locked. I'm going to go ahead and zoom into this just a little bit. And you see my three clips here, and all I have to do to change the order is make sure the clip is selected, hold down the Command key on Mac or the Control key on Windows, and simply just drag it to the left, and you'll notice these teeth pop up to help guide me. And all I have to do now is let it go, and these two have now switched positions. One thing to point out is you do want to make sure that your snap is actually on. I'm going to turn it off, and just in case this happens to you, if I go ahead and move this by holding that modifier key down and I get it very close to the edge and I let it go, you'll notice it left this small area here. By having the snap on, it'll help you snap that to the other end so that doesn't happen. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that to put that back and turn my snap back on. So at this point, I might just want to double check that my clips are in the order that I want. I can go ahead and check this clip. That looks great. It's the same guy under here. And then I can go ahead and just see that all of this scrubs exactly the way that I want it. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like with the audio on. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the mute track button and turn that off, and then wind this back a little bit and just see how it turns out. So I instantly see that right there he says, everybody put your hands up, and you'll notice his hands aren't up yet. And I know that there's a scene there where his hands are actually already up. So now I need to adjust that clip so it matches the audio. What's the easiest way to do that? You'll find a tool over here called the slip tool, and it's really easy to use. All you have to do is select the slip tool and make sure that your playhead is exactly where you want to make the adjustment, and then you click on the clip and you just drag it right or left until you see exactly where you'd like him to start. So you see his hands are in the air about right here. Now that appears to look pretty good. Now let's bring the playhead back here and see how we did.
Everybody put your hands up. Everybody say Superman.
And I think that looks pretty good. And finally, let's add a transition at the beginning of the clip to fade in from black. As you'll see in my project panel area, I have the double arrows which are indicating that I have more panels to choose from. I'm going to go ahead and choose the effects panel to bring it forward. You can open any of these folders and manually look through there, or it's much faster just to click in the search box area using a simple cross dissolve. So I can just type in the word cross and you'll see that a number of things popped up, and here's my cross dissolve, and all I have to do is just take it and drag it from here right onto my opening clip. I'm going to go in and zoom in so you can see that it's been applied to the beginning of the clip. Let's play that back. Now that looks pretty good, but if you want it to be longer or shorter, all you have to do is take your pointer, click on the cross dissolve, and then you can grab the edge of it and make it longer or shorter depending on how much you want to change the duration. I'm going to make that a little bit longer and see what that looks like. Really, really easy. Another way to use transitions is from clip to clip. I can use any transitions in the transition folder and apply it in the same way. This time, let's use dip to black, and we'll drag it between two clips, wait for it to highlight, and let it go. And at this point, we've got a great looking timeline, and we've got a pretty good idea on how to use some of the general trimming tools, as well as working in the timeline, and finally applying transitions. In this tutorial, we'll give you an introduction to adding titles and an intro to working with effects. Let's get started. To add a title is really quick and easy. You just go to File, New, Title. Let's give our title a name and click OK. You'll find all your familiar tools off to the left-hand side, from your text tools to drawing shapes and alignment type tools. Off to the right-hand side are tools that you can use to make adjustments. So let me give you a quick idea how some of this works. To start out, I always like to show what this area up here does because it's unique to the Adobe Premiere Pro titler. You'll notice that when I bring my mouse over here, it turns into a hot scrub, which allows me to scrub the video. So I can scrub it from right to left and actually see what's going on the timeline. And this really comes in handy when I want to do things like color pick or set my title up for any particular scene. All you have to do is scrub to that area and start typing. I'll use my arrow tool and position this right where I want it. I also have a collection of title styles at the bottom of the title panel, which allows me to use those styles as they are or to use them as a starting point. I can also make further adjustments by grabbing any of the handles and moving them into position. You'll also notice that as I make adjustments, the properties of the font size and aspect size will change in the title property area. You can also hot scrub over any of the blue numbers by clicking and dragging left to right to change its value. Now, the other thing that comes in handy for me is I like to select my text and then go down to my color here. I can either click on my color, apply a new color, or better yet, I typically will use the color sampler tool, and then I might click maybe on his shirt and see how that looks. You'll also notice that it went ahead for that particular style and put an outline text. I can scroll down here to where my outlines are, or what we call strokes, and I can turn them off or turn them back on, and I can even come back in and change the color if I need to. Maybe just turn that to a little bit darker and click OK. And again, I can come over here and make a size adjustment larger or smaller to that particular style as well. Once you come up with a style that you like, you now have an option to create a new style to add to your library, and that's really easily done just by going to the menu, New Style, go ahead and give it a name and click OK, and you'll notice it just added that style down here to the bottom of your stack. Now at this point, we've done everything we need to do to our title, and titles are automatically saved, so I don't have to worry about saving the title. All I have to do is close it, and you'll see it appears right here inside my project. And now to apply that title, all I have to do is drag and drop it to the video track 2 in this particular case, and adjust it either longer or shorter depending on how long I want the title to appear. Now I'm going to go ahead and click my mute button so I don't have to hear the audio and play this back. And that looks pretty good. Now what I might want to do is go ahead and back this up a little bit, stretch it out, and let's add a cross dissolve effect to that by going over to our effects panel, and I'm going to type in DISS for dissolve and apply that just like so. And I'm going to go ahead and grab the side of that dissolve, shorten that up just a little bit, and see what the timing looks like at this point. And that looks really good. Now if you want to make further adjustments to your title, all you have to do is double click on it. It'll open up the titler window for you, and here you're free to make whatever adjustments you want. Once you close the title, you'll notice when I scrub the timeline now, it's actually taken on a new position. Really, really easy and very handy to use. There's another great way to make titles, and that's using Photoshop. Let me show you how easy that is. We're going to start by just deleting this title. We're going to go to File, New, Photoshop File. It's going to go ahead and give Photoshop all the information it needs to build me a template. I'm going to go ahead and give this a name. And you'll see Photoshop is actually displaying the title safe guide area with the blue guide markers. You have complete access to layers and all the magic of Photoshop. I'm just going to go ahead and start with importing a graphic. I'll go to File, Place Embedded, and select my logo that has a transparent background, and then save it. And return back to Premiere Pro, and you'll see my peaktitle.psd is already imported into the project bin for me, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop this right where I had the other one and see how this looks. Now that looks okay, but I instantly see it's not exactly in the right position. Now you don't have to go back to Photoshop. All you have to do is double click on the graphic, and you'll see you get your handles on the side, which are going to allow you to change its size. Again, you can hold the Shift key down so you maintain your proportions, and you can go ahead and just move that exactly where you want it. I'm going to go ahead and make that a little bit bigger. Maybe put this down here and scrub through this and see what it looks like. What I might want to do is make it look like my border is going to go up the side of this logo just before he starts to spin around. At any time, you can return back to Photoshop to make an adjustment on your graphic by simply right mouse clicking on the Photoshop file and selecting Edit in Photoshop. I'll make a simple adjustment by just going to the layer style and adding an outer glow and a drop shadow. I'll click OK, and then I'll save the file. Return back to Premiere Pro, and you'll see that the logo has now been updated and shows the glow and the shadow. Next, let's go ahead and animate this graphic coming in from the right side. I'm going to move my playhead back to the beginning of the clip. I'm going to double click on the graphic itself and move it off the screen. And you'll notice that I still have my handles here on the side to help me guide this as I animate it. Next, I'm going to flip down the motion control setting and click on position to set a starting keyframe. The next step is to drag the playhead out on the effect control keyframe area to where you want the motion to stop. The easiest way to move the graphic is just to drag it in the program monitor to where you want it to stop. You'll also notice that Premiere Pro added another keyframe for you. Let's play this back. And one of the last things you might want to do to your Photoshop title is go over to your effects panel and grab a cross dissolve and put it right at the beginning. Adjust the cross dissolve by clicking on it and moving it slightly to the left, and let's play that back. And that looks pretty good, and at this point you should have a general idea how to use Premiere Pro's built-in titler as well as using Photoshop for creating titles. Let's take a look at a few more tools that we can use when working on the timeline. If I hover over any of these tools, you'll see its keyboard shortcut come up. For example, the razor tool shows the letter C, while the selection tool, or some people call it the move tool, shows the letter V. As I hover over this clip and press the C key, I can start using the razor blade tool immediately without having to click on the tool first. And if I hit the V key now for the selection tool, or again move, I can click on that and you'll see it turns to a pointer that will allow me to work with any of the clips the way that I need to. Additionally to this, if you happen to have made a cut that you didn't mean to make, of course you can hit the undo key, or if you happen to discover it later, you can right mouse click and join those through edits just by clicking between the two clips. And you'll see it puts that clip right back together the way that it was. Another great tool is the Ripple Edit tool, keyboard shortcut B. This will allow me to go in between two clips, and pulling either left or pulling right, I can go ahead and adjust the clip without making a gap. And you'll notice it turns yellow to tell me that it's going to go ahead and fill in that gap for me, or ripple. So as I pull this clip a little to the left, I can actually see what's going on in sort of a trim view in the program monitor and let this go. And I can also do the same thing for the following clip and push it forward as I scrub and see right where I want him to go ahead and be in that frame, and let it go, and it makes the adjustment for me. And now I can just go ahead and scrub right through that and see what my timing looks like. One of my favorite tools to use is the rate stretch tool, and I'm going to scroll down the timeline and find a clip that looks to be a little long, and when I scroll through it I see I'd like to have all of that action. I would just like it to be a little bit faster. So by grabbing the rate stretch tool, or again the keyboard shortcut R, all I have to do is just pull this a little bit and it's actually going to make it run a lot faster, but it kept all of the frames in the scene. And at this point, all I have to do is grab my pointer tool, click between these two clips, and I'll press delete and fill in that gap, and I'll play it back. Rate stretch is something I use all the time. Let's go ahead and learn to apply some effects. What I'm going to do is clear out my search window so I have all of my folders and effects presented for me, so when I flip these open, all of the effects will show instead of being filtered by the search. So I'm going to go to my effects. We have lots of different subfolders with additional effects in each one. I'm going to go down to stylize and take a look and see what's in here. Let's move the playhead back here, and I'm going to go and apply Find Edges and see what that looks like. Now, over in the Effects Control panel, if your effects are not active, all you have to do is click on the Effects Controls tab and then click on your clip. You'll see the effect Fine Edges applied. I'm going to click the invert button so I sort of get him on a darker background and scrub through this and see what it looks like. And some of the effects are really cool and can be used in all different ways for openers and credit rolls and things like that. And you have lots of different choices where you can blend this with the original just to sort of put the effect on a little softer, a little harder. And again, just by going over the hot text back and forth until you have the adjustment that you want. You can also click on it and hit the arrow key up, or the arrow key down to apply that adjustment exactly the way you want it. To turn an effect off or on, make sure the clip is selected. Go to your effects control panel, find the effect you're looking for. In this case, it's find edges, and I can click on it to put a slash through the effect. That means the effect is no longer applied, or I can click on it again to turn the effect on. And if I just want to delete it, I can select it and then hit the delete key, and now the effect has been removed from the clip. One place where effects is used a lot is adjusting color. We've made this really easy by creating a workspace called Color, so I'm going to go ahead and select that now. And you'll notice that the workspace changed. It actually shows me what we call our lumetri scopes for my different color values and presented a whole new panel off to the right hand side that allows me to adjust the color without having to have another panel open. Many of the controls that you'll find in here are really easy to use and very similar if you're familiar with Photoshop or Lightroom. But to make it easier, we've actually given you the ability just to click through a bunch of different presets or looks, and you just click on either one of these arrows until you find a setting that looks like it's going to work for your scene. For example, this blue day for night, I can just click on this and you see it's now applied this and my water is really blue. If I like that, I can just leave it as is, or I could use some of the controls in here to lighten the intensity up here just a little bit. I have basic color correction tools up here where I might want to deal with my exposure a little bit, and as I mentioned before, you can click into an effect and use your arrow keys to go up or your arrow keys to go down to dial the exposure up or down. And again, you can use your command key on Mac or control key on Windows to adjust this effect by tenths to get the exact look that you're looking for. You'll find that it really helps you to work incredibly fast. In this case, I might want to bring out a little bit of this shadow detail that's underneath his board here, and I might just want to bring this up a little bit so I can start to see some of those graphics. I think you'll find these tools fairly intuitive, and at this point you should have a pretty good idea of how to use some additional editing tools on the timeline, as well as some new ways to apply effects and an intro to the Lumetri color panel. In this tutorial, we'll give you a general idea how to start working with audio in Premiere Pro. We'll take a look at adding transitions, more precise editing with the pen tool, adding effects, and then take a look at gain. When I zoom into my track using the plus key, I already see that this has a fade in. But let's assume that our audio didn't have a fade, so I'm just going to go ahead and adjust this and bring the audio track back as if it started out this way. You'll notice when it plays back, it abruptly starts with no fade in. So the quickest way to fix that is using an audio transition in the crossfade folder. The blue highlight indicates under constant power that that's my default setting, and generally that's the one you'll use most of the time. So I'm just going to drag that directly onto the clip the same way you apply a cross dissolve on a video track. They work in much the same way. I'm going to zoom in and try to match these two just by grabbing the edge and dragging it out. Let's go ahead and play this back. And I think that sounds okay. When you need a more precise adjustment, that's where you can use the pen tool. Let's start by selecting this effect and deleting it, selecting the pen tool, and then going over to the audio clip, and you'll notice when I approach the middle of the clip, a plus sign appears on the pen tool allowing me to place a point. All I have to do is click in two spots, giving me 2 points in which I can pull from. I'm going to grab my selection tool and grab a point to make an adjustment, and in this case I'll just fade it in and hit play. You can go back and adjust it anytime you need to. And you can place as many points as you need to. Again, just grab the pen tool, place a few points on the timeline, grab your selection tool, and then make any adjustment between those 2 points that you need to. In this case, you can use 4 points to make a quick dip. These are techniques that you'll use all the time when you need to make precise adjustments to audio. I'm going to go ahead and just undo all these points and put this back together. Another great way to work with audio is learning about Premiere Pro's audio effects. Let's take a look at a few of them. One of them I use all the time is the multiband compressor. You just simply drag and drop it, go up to your effects controls, and hit edit. When you play the video back, you can actually make audio adjustments in real time. To help make working with audio easier, you'll notice there are presets that are already defined for you. I can play the audio back and switch between the presets as it plays. The presets are a great way to get started and then start to make some of your minor adjustments as you go along. You'll notice on the timeline there's a purple effects badge which is telling you that an effect has been applied. To remove the effect is fairly easy. All you have to do is go up to your effects controls, select the effect, and hit delete. And now you'll notice the effects badge is gray, indicating that no effect has been applied. There's also some effects you can use to create some pretty interesting audio effects. Seeing that we've got a scene underwater, let's add an underwater effect using the phaser effect. Let's zoom in a bit so I can get a better look at this clip. And I'll use my razor blade to make cuts right where this clip starts and stops. Now I can just apply the effect directly to this portion of the audio clip. From my effects panel, I'm just going to type in the word phaser, and I see it right here. I'm going to drag and drop it on the portion that I cut, hit my edit, and you'll notice in this particular effect I also have a lot of presets, and one of the presets says underwater. Let's see what this sounds like. And you'll quickly see there's some great audio effects that you can use to enhance your audio on the timeline. The last thing I'll show you is how to quickly adjust the gain on your timeline with a numeric value. I'll go ahead and remove the effect that I just added. So when I adjust the gain, it'll adjust it for the whole audio clip. In many cases, you'll want to adjust your gain when you first lay it down on your audio track to start it at a base level. To get to the audio gain control, all you have to do is to select your audio clip that you want to adjust the gain, hit the G on the keyboard, and let's adjust the gain by 2 dB. And when I click OK, you'll notice that the waveform adjusted itself, indicating that a change was made. You can see visually that the levels on this waveform appear to be okay. If needed, you can actually enter positive or negative values to get your audio to the desired level needed for your project. And now you have a general idea how to start working with audio in Premiere Pro. In this tutorial, we'll give you an introduction to exporting out of Premiere Pro and a quick introduction to using Adobe Media Encoder. When your sequence is complete and you're ready to export, Premiere Pro needs to know which sequence you're ready to export. In many workflows, you might have more than one sequence, so again, you need to tell Premiere Pro which one you want to export. In our example, we only have one sequence that we can export. So you need to tell Premiere Pro which sequence you want to export in one of two ways. You can select the sequence in the timeline panel, where you see the blue box now surrounding the sequence. This is going to allow you to go to File, Export, Media. You can also select the sequence in the project panel. Again, in case you have more than one, you can tell it which one you want to export. And then when you go to File, Export Media, you also see it's available to use. I highly recommend when you look at the various formats available that you start with H.264. You'll also notice we have a lot of different presets that are in here. I find the best export for beginners is to use any of the Vimeo or YouTube settings. And all you have to do to get to those settings is hit the Y key for YouTube, for example, and select the YouTube setting that you want, and all the settings have already been applied. And all you have to do at this point is just click on the output name and decide which folder you'd like to put your output, click on Export, and let Premiere Pro start the encoding process. Let's take the time to look at a few other settings that you might be interested in. You'll notice a number of tabs in the center area of the export setting. If you click on the Effects tab and select Image Overlay, and then choose the image that you want to use, this will apply that image so it will appear on top of your video. Just use the settings to adjust the size and position of the graphic, and when you export, the image will be applied. This is also a great way to watermark your video without needing to apply an extra title or graphic to your sequence when working in Premiere Pro. Other settings you'll find useful are basic video settings, basic audio settings, as well as publish settings. You can publish to Creative Cloud, Facebook, FTP, Vimeo, and YouTube. For those that need to export as QuickTime, there's a few extra steps to exporting QuickTime to select the QuickTime format that you need. Under Format, select QuickTime. Then you go under the Video tab. From there, you select the QuickTime codec. And as you'll see, all the various QuickTime options for making setting changes are available to you in the Video tab once you've selected the video codec that you need. You'll notice at the bottom of the export settings that there's a button labeled Q. When you press Q, the Adobe Media Encoder preloads the sequence and is ready for you to encode. All you have to do is click the green play button to start the queue. And you'll notice near the bottom of the screen you'll get an output preview showing you the progress. At this point you should have a general idea on the two basic methods for exporting out of Premiere Pro. One being the export, which is a direct encode from Premiere Pro, while the other being Q, which will send the sequence to Adobe Media Encoder, allowing you to continue to edit in Premiere Pro.